Nice to see you. So, I'm Mark from Analytical Academy, for those of you who don't know me. This workshop is meant to sort of be a bridge from, or at least provide a bridge. One of the ways that I'm working towards bridging the distance between the technical fencing materials we find in the manuals that we're all into and think are really fantastic, and its tactical application. So, what it ultimately is Mark's meta theory of fencing. Okay? So it's only as good as my understanding, of course, but I hope that it can provide a really useful tool for you. A useful tool in a number of different ways. First of all, that it helps you understand fencing a little bit better. Most of what I'm going to say about fencing, the more experienced people will have read already, so it's not meant to be revolutionary in that way. And that it gives you a bunch of tools, both personally as fighters, to go, right, this area is where I need to work on, and for analysis of opponents or other sorts of other things. We could both be able to go away and go, what sort of fighter or something am I facing? This is where their focus is, and focus is how can I respond to that? And you will find the answers yourselves, because we're all studying different people, and we'll have different technical capacities. We'll draw the answers out of that. So this is hopefully the sort of tool that will actually help unlock your use of your technical abilities as a fencer. So, first for a definition. So I'm calling this as a ground, and I got partway into developing this and I discovered that George Silver had talked about something very similar. He talks about grounds. I don't want to go into his theory today, but what I'm working on is slightly different. One way I'm approaching it is slightly different. I think it would just be a bit confusing, right? So, but a ground is really simple. In his 1570 work, Joachim Meyer talks about fencing as sort of the wonderful struggle between people. Now, a ground is something that fencers struggle over. So both literally and figuratively. So I feel that most fencing tactics and techniques can be described well by reference to them. And fencers themselves, this is what's really interesting as far as I'm observing. Fencers themselves can be really well described in these terms. And they tend to rely on one or the other of them, often to the expense of other grounds, right? Fencers who can bring them all together are both admirable, obviously admirable, and deeply formidable opponents. So, this work's born, like most things I think in fencing, with dissatisfaction with my own efforts. Yeah. So, like most of you, I try to fence as many and as diverse a range of people as possible. So, now I watch as many fights as I possibly can. So, one of the issues that I've had is the common underperformance of technically accomplished fighters. And excellent performance of those who can manage only one or two techniques. So, this is a distinction. I'm going to go completely this. It's part of it. There's a distinction we can't just write off as, they're an attribute fence, or they've got this attribute going forward. Because it has all the hallmarks of actually being skilled. So actually being a skill that these people are using. So I go, I'm missing something here where I'm responding to. So I also notice that fighters themselves are remarkably stable over time and use the same sort of tactical responses over and over. I've also noticed, personally, my own fencing learning ones, that we have a whole pile of situations, things like, where fencers will be hit by the same technique or the same type of technique over and over again and not be able to do anything about it. And vice versa, with finals. Or they'll be beaten really regularly by someone who they know is less skilled. It's awful, and it's even worse when they're just because it undercuts the very authority of what you're doing as a teacher. Is going like, yeah, I'm teaching this thing, and this is the answer to the question, and you've taught them the answer to the question. They can actually do it, and then it goes the wrong way. Enormously frustrating. Why am I doing this? So this is me taking a step from that to go, okay, this is what I would like the world to be, this is what it is. So the theory of grounds helps to fill out the picture of the fight to help us understand these events. Now, personally at least, the times that I've managed to apply it in a bout or offensive, in a bout or in a total situation, it has been spectacularly easy. Okay, and it's really, really useful. People found it really, really useful, and in that way that it can help your performance, it can help tweak the performance of other people. So, first 7 grounds, at least 5. 5 are literal physical grounds, the things that we're fighting over. Okay? The physical things we're fighting over. And 2, at the moment, they haven't developed these as much, are psychological things that reflect the social conflict of the bout. Right? I'll focus on the physical ones. I think that's because they are more primary. Okay? And secondly, because the psychological ones are the most interesting when we are talking about how they affect the physical ones. So that's really. So the grounds are these. The first one is distance. And the second one is time. We've all come across these in testing texts. Those are the primary grounds. You can't do a fight without them. The secondary grounds are line and space. And you can think of space, the distinction between space and line. Space is lateral movement. Think of movement for a start that changes line. Line and use of the space around us. Right? The sword itself, right? Who has control of the sword? The engagements between the swords. Sword. Those are the first 5 grounds, the physical ones. And the 2 psychological ones are perception and seventh spirit. We'll get around to those. It's not I'm not being specifically spiritual in this particular thing, but maybe it has some relevance, I'm not sure. So the primary grounds, distance and time, should be recognisable always. You know, if they're not recognisable to you, I'm a little worried about you. Or for you, as Spencer. Because the manipulation of distance and timing is the critical most of that. So the first fight is the fight over distance. The first fight over, literally, the distance of the engagement. Right? So this ground is about the physical distance between the combatants and the use of measure and footwork to control that fight. So it's about determining the range that you want to fight at, what is advantageous for you to fight at, and making it so. So for example, the taller fighter wants to find a really sweet spot where they are in your close measure, get you with a single motion, and where you're still in long measure and they can parry you easily. Okay? This is a crap fight for you, so it's a good fight for them. Or, let's look at the opposite one, positioning yourself in a close measure where you can strike to the openings easily and your opponent is cramped and can't work. Okay, so this is typically a short fighter's fight, but it works. Why? It is about controlling distance. So the distance fighter is kind of generally characteristically reliant on longer range techniques. Simple attacks and 1-2 combinations. Positioning their opponent, setting themselves up for cleaning. Normally, there is an advantage on this ground to people who are taller or have, for the obvious reason that they have more reach. Okay? And normally they tend to be offensively focused. But not necessarily. So the second round is time. And then timing covers the use of timing as well as pure physical speed. it's fighting over the when of the engagement, or which part of the engagement is decisive. Okay, so I think it's both clearly elucidated by the Italian school of fencing, with the concept of tempo, and includes variation and use of patterning and timing, as well as setting up a strike which is going to happen really quickly. Okay? So there's an obvious advantage from this round to fences who are fast and fluid. So here's a couple of examples of techniques. So that are very easy here. There's parry riposte techniques, taking a tempo and counter tempo techniques. A really good example of a time technique is Swordplay, because there's a version where you take the ball. There's a version which is done defensively, and if you set it up properly, you can generally get 2 strikes in the tempo. Your opponent can do 1 kick. Okay, so it's a really good example, and that way that blow is particularly manipulating time. Simply mechanical. So the time fighter is kind of characterized by normally much freer movement between offense and defense, and use of different timings. There's somewhat of a distinction to be made, I feel, between people who are focused on timings and those who are focused on pure physical speed. We've all done it, and the most common response to being in a fight is try and get it faster. We're intuitively trying to win the ground all the time, because if I get it faster, I hit you. Right? Not the most effective or sophisticated use of this approach to it, but it shows you what we're fighting about. The timing of what's the... So, I'll point out here that obviously these grounds feed into each other. I can't just separate, this is all timing, this is all time, and all this is all distance, because they are related. But fighters will tend to use one for the purpose of setting up the other. Fighters will tend to be looking for the tempo. For example, just looking at a counter technique. They'll be focused on looking for the tempo to make that counter technique, or they'll be focused on remaining in exactly the correct distance. They'll be queuing off, as soon as he is in that distance, I make that technique. They will be using distance and time, treating one as sort of one over the other. And that makes a big difference in terms of how you fight those people. Cool. So, the next 2 rounds are secondary rounds. They are line and space. And one of the reasons I wanted to make a further point about the two primary grounds is without these grounds, you have no fight. They are the 80%, they are the 20% of what we do that gives out 80% of results. You can fight and fight successfully, often without much of a blade engagement. Okay? You can fight successfully without necessarily controlling the line if you use distance timing. They are also the place where we most probably make the most mistakes. And hence we don't get to the juicy skills that we have. Okay? We go, I was setting up this and I was controlling that, I was doing these things that happen further down the road. And we're not focused on winning these rounds first. So they're when I'm saying they're primary, they are, you have to have them when you don't get cool stuff that you really want to pull off. And because when we start talking about different types of fighters, those fighters who are just intuitive and tactical, but it's their entire fight. Really, it's the guts of their entire fight, whether they've learnt about timings or whether they're just doing it intuitively. Okay. And if if you're not putting that same degree of focus into that, you're going to lose the first primary grounds. You're not even going to get to where you want to. So, line. Most of us know about line. I'm defining it here in terms of control of central space between us. Okay, an example of a technique is an obsessive, or the whole Eagle Creek Noble War of the German tradition. Stringera, blade dominance is Stringera is obviously control of line. The advantage of the right angle, etc. Lots of these things. Now these often have to do with the sword, and often have to do with your position, but not necessarily. The other secondary ground that I'm talking about is space. The here is broad the use of offline space to change things. So thinking about voiding and stepping offline. Movement is really critical. If we're looking for a really concrete example is a Krupal, moving offline. Moving offline, you think that offline movement question just get the blade dominance that we want. Now I was thinking, I thought a number of times, oh, we'll just skip them all together. It's really all about the line and just variations on understanding it. But here is the interesting thing, as I've been developing and thinking about this, is that they represent, in a really obvious way, two very different responses to a stimulus. So, I know which one he is. So this is good, okay? Generally speaking, a response to a stimulus, okay? Little, that's all he needed to do. His space, because his response, thank you very much. That's all I needed. His response to pressure is indirect. We look at other fences, but I've got my tape. I was not in here at the moment. Yeah, probably, the Jim's response is probably more direct. Probably, but like for example, I just take Dimitri. He was just completely direct. It's really obvious, watching some of the time, whether in fact the fundamental response to pressure from other people is direct or indirect. So in this way I think it's really useful to distinguish between line and space. You're either seeking to control the other person, seeking to control the central space, this is tends to be on that law, or seeking to set up the perfect position. Yep?
I feel tactically victimized.
What?
I feel tactically victimized.
Don't be.
Okay. Cool. So, tactically victimized. This is the cool thing. Once you start figuring these things out, you can go out and tactically victimize people. Okay? So we could use this in terms of coaching and things like that. Yes, he's do that, we know we can expect this response from people. Okay. Yes, and if you don't want to suck, if you don't want to get getting messed up, you better learn how to deal with winning out of the ground. You better get confident and competent at winning that out of the ground, and not just yielding. Or you better learn how to take it, how to consistently take the fight where you want to. And that's where we're going. I'll be really quick. Filling out the rest of the ground. So I talk about the sword as a tertiary ground. And here it is all of the advantages of the sword. The advantage of the right angle, the sword edges, straight, but advantage of straight versus angle, strong and weak, okay? That we've learned now. It's a tertiary ground because you need to have used all of them. You need to at least use both primary and secondary grounds in order to use it. Okay? Ultimately, if you can get there, though, you're toast. So that's why we talk about it so much. If we look at our source, now I've gone through the grounds, primary ones, the physical ones. If we look at what our sources are more normally focused on, they are normally focused further on into the secondary and tertiary grounds. They talk and they take for granted often a whole pile of stuff about distance and timing. They talk a bit about distance. They often talk about, but they're not necessarily specific. And the more you get onto, the more you go on into the secondary grounds. So that's where I focus on and what we think is good fencing. But if we neglect the first ones, we never get to the secondary ones, and we never ever get to the tertiary ones except by luck, and not very often. Cool. So, if this is going to have any validity, it needs to show up regularly in the source material, okay? And it does. I'll just get through this because the really juicy stuff is after this. But like, for example, when straight off this one, okay, this is what I think it is. What are the 5 strikes? The Viva Sepsim represent each one of them a dominance over a different ground. This is really interesting. The 5 strikes each have a really strong different ground. And the 5th one, somehow, can be used in about half a dozen different ways. So it's a multi-purpose piece.
What are the 5 strikes?
Okay, let's do a shy strike. So, Scheitelhau, directly down, is manipulating distance. Is manipulating distance, striking at on measure. Verkau is manipulating time. It's the particular one that has the best for and nut versions, and sets those secondary strikes up, right? Schielhau gives us massive dominance on the line of engagement, and Krupphau uses space. Oh, that's really interesting. The 5 strikes, which Lichtedal says need can solve all our fencing problems, actually each have a different ground that they're responding to. So there's a different practical reason for choosing each one of those. Because this has bothered me for a long time. When do we choose which one of the 5 strikes we should specifically doing? Now we're actually linking it to something. Cool. So Silver obviously talks a whole pile about this one, over there specifically. It's one of the pattern expressions for doing this, about you have your judgment, use your judgment to find the distance, and in finding the distance you find your timing, and then you step into the place where you can safely offend the other person and get out safely. So this is part of the inspiration for these grounds. These look at grounds in his initial conceptual setup. Okay? Look here, the Italian school. The Italian school talks very explicitly about the distances for stretta and larga and how we can manipulate distance with that. It has elucidated in a very detailed theory of tempo. Okay? It's very explicit about gaining the line and how to do so, and the advantage of the sword. And it shows a whole pile of voids and giratas and stuff like that is space. So, this stuff, each school is having a different response, different way that it is structuring its responses to these tactical problems, but it's the same patterns in each space. Cool. Very, very shortly, you can also, particularly with something like the Italian school, and correct me where I've made factual mistakes here. Well, I make factual mistakes here because I will, so I don't know quite enough about it. Look at, for example, different rapier masters. And go, okay, for the little, for example, I've done on someone like Marcelli, so that's later, he is actually really strongly on distance and tempo. Okay. It's not as distance and tempo. Capoferro and Gigantia are very strong line. Maybe not so. For the small amount that I've seen, that Fabrice shows much more of a use of space in terms of like, or infinite. I'm not talking about the baby, this and the other. They all do all of it. But if you and really neatly, in Spanish, just say, fuck, how do that possibly with impunity? Okay? So, if this is in today's schools, and a picture largely of what happens in the that if I can change the question, we're looking for solution versus and we'll try to narrow that down to people. If I can control your sword, so I want all about so I always about it. Sort of consider grappling as just an extension of one of the other grounds that I need to be managing to make that happen. Then you're done. Or I need to do this. So it's really useful in terms of when we're putting these grounds into practice that you ask them, frame it as an if statement. If I can do this, so then this can happen. And then that's that has become a strategy to put into practice. Defenses tend to gain a dominance. Now, if I gave that challenge to each one of you, you all have slightly different answers. Because you're tall and you're short and you're fast and you're slow and you've got a different range of skills. You can answer the same question in different ways, but now if we ask it like that, the vast majority of you, because you've all put time and effort into learning stuff, can go, oh yeah, I do that now. In answering for example, in answering the fight of how do I keep, just do a couple. Jim, how would you aim to keep your opponent to your exact engagement range?
Keep them at my...
Keep them at your exact engagement, at your ideal engagement range, or to put them in your, just to put them in your ideal engagement range.
Controlling space, moving around, to keep them at what I'm comfortable with without retreating too far.
And
lateral movement.
Lateral movement, and which sets up then the timing that you're looking for.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Woody, what would if you same example, what would be your response to? You want to put your opponent in your exact ideal engagement range. What's your approach? How would you do that? What would you do?
Just my own next street where they try and communicate to where they communicate to their line.
Cool. Anybody else? Yeah, cool. Okay, first, what's your ideal engagement range? Okay, good. So that's a different answer to the question for each one of us. Okay? Jim, so just we'll go back over that. What would your ideal engagement range be?
I don't answer the question.
What's the range? We're fighting. Where do you want to? What's the range you want to be in?
The range that I can hit you out without being hit.
Cool.
Well, you can't do that just purely say. I mean, if I may jump in because I watched a lot of your guys' fights when I've been able to. From my observation, Jim loves to be in that range that's sort of about here, so you can unleash your zerks and all that stuff, and you're that bit closer to them and can crowd them. And whereas Mark would probably love to have you about here, where he's got that bit of extra distance, and you'll try to stop him you'll stay back a bit more, do those techniques, provoke him, get him in, and once he's here, then he's in your range. And then if he comes any closer, he's clearly in
Gordon's
range that he wants to. So distance isn't just about.
So you're asking, do I like being close play, wide play?
Yeah, you're asking where do you want to play?
Oh, let's be specific.
Yeah.
Wide
play. Cool. Okay. What's your exact? Is there a ladder? Okay. Yeah. Well, so you're getting on close.
When I'm fighting also, because my sword is shorter than theirs, and I'd be furious, so I want to be close to the ground all the time. And it's one of these things I deal with that I like to go in more close and play away when I'm done. And I'm astonished, so I generally want to feint and draw something out so I can get in and close past the
Cool.
and come back.
Same question, different answers. This is of course what we need to do. We just need to find the answer that's going to work here. next point. So in practice, fencers tend to recognise intuitively the ground so that they fight fight. If they don't, they just go off straight away. And there are two sort of reactive approaches that you see, and two sort of proactive approaches. They're quite simple. They sort of marry really nicely. In practice, fencers will tend to either seed the ground that the fighter has established on its own, or they'll play the game that the fighter who has taken the initiative will do. Say, for example, some fighter keeps moving around a lot on the edge of the measure. It's setting a rhythm. Normally, the fighter, the two reactive approaches that you see really, really often are passivity. He's moving around, I'm going to stop. Or moving around in rhythm with him. Both are super bad. Because in one case, you become passive and at that point you can back out really easily. In another case, literally the other fencer is leading you. So you've lost this game. You've lost this game before it starts. Sort of to most of that. So you only win if you're going to bring the skills you want to the ground you're working, or you leverage the skills and you change the ground. Okay, so if we playing the other person's game is a factor of, as far as I understand, imitating. We imitate each other. It's one of the fundamental ways that we learn. Put that in a fight situation, the human being thinks, this is the adaptive way to deal with it, I imitate. And the other person starts to take control again. The second one is when I seed the ground, that can be worse because it means it gives the opposing fighter all the time and space to work the techniques to do what they want. So what should I do? Let's look at two proactive responses. Take that ground. First one, take that ground from them. Specifically, take it from them. If you back yourself, play it and play it better. Okay. You mustn't imitate it. Kind of fake this occasionally. I was doing some fighting with Kevin Mirzaki, who's a fantastic baby fencer from America, and he was picking me apart on tempo. Okay? I decided, picking me apart on tempo line, I decided I'm going to let this happen, and worked one good thrust on line in tempo. After that, the fast fight went back to having not being under pressure. So, the first response, go and win that ground. Don't imitate, don't follow, win that ground. The second one, change the ground. Think of the words but or and. I'm the person who said I am doing this is the ground that we're fighting over. My answer is but, this is what's going to happen. But I'm going to control the line, but I'm going to move offline. I'm going to move offline, but I'm going to control the line. I'm going to set up the timing. I'm just going to frustrate that with space or distance. You can answer pretty much most of the grounds with each other, with another ground. And this means that the control of the fight does move from person to person, brings it back to where you want to fight. No, please.
I was about to jump ahead. Let's say that Gindi is picking you apart with line, right?
Yep.
And you're in the ground. You're in the ground line, and
Yep.
you're worried about that, and you realise that mid-fight from the races, wire angles,
Yeah.
or whatever. So you decide to change the ground. Do you begin, and you have to change it to another secondary one? You're going to use space or something.
You use space, or you use space, you go up. You make sure.
Tempo and measure, and then move down. Is that how you? Are you thinking of it like that?
It's a good way to think about it. The theory is a bit more fluid than that. So you go, okay, he's beating me here. Any of those could be potentially the answer. You go, okay, I'm going to win. I'm going to decide which shift to time. I'm going to decide which is the definitive tempo. At that point, you've got to foot back in the struggle between you and you, for example. And progressing is often good because it's fundamental, okay? Because potentially it's not where his focus is at the moment, okay? Not where he's focusing. And especially as it looks at the next point. Under stress, our use of grounds becomes increasingly myopic. We go back to the, if I can just control the lines, timings, I will win the fight. We're all looking for the magic thing, the magic button that we can press that will win. Maybe not all of you fencing one, but human beings are always looking at, oh, if we only do this diet is going to solve all my problems, right? But what we need is actually a multifaceted response to what's happening. What we want to do is try as much as possible to combine my moves. The perfect technique is where I find the correct distance and make my timing, control the line, step off line, and control this sort of mess them up. Make it up. The best techniques are when we actually manage to control multiple rounds. If I control line and space, they're gone. If I control the distance and time, they're gone. For example, we should try to, as much as possible, combine grounds. And the more grounds we manage to win, the higher chances of success and get good success as well. I'll talk really quickly about the psychological grounds. This is a bit part of this theory that I have. I've done as much work on it. It's like putting that in, particularly if any of you guys are going to be more responsible. Ground of perception. This is really easy to just define. Look at Dan Green. He's always messing with your perception of the distance between you, the measure between you. Seeking to set off the timings. And this is really interesting. The ground of perception is normally about trying to mess with your perception of a given ground. Really lovely one. Example of a technique that I taught. I keep running into task. I become really big in your visual field. I am close. I go back into Swordplay and see my footfall, keeping my focus at you. I'm actually closer, but I'm manipulating the perception of whether I'm close or far away from you. So, grounded perception would cover a whole part of deceptions and deceits and false play and things like that. Is that obscuring the line. Okay, that's some of the stuff we were talking about before, where you are stepping off line, but really you're seeking to engage, you're stepping off line, using space, interval, as well. What you're really doing is positioning your sword to win the line that they're about to give you, okay? That's a really good example of combining your grounds, hence it's the most successful, and messing with the perception of which ground you're actually fighting on. And if you can make them think that I'm fighting over the timing of when we're going, and all I'm really doing is trying to set them up in the perfect distance, that's going to be a much more successful strategy than I'll put them into the perfect distance, and they go, oh, he's trying to put me in the perfect position. I'm going to be aware of that. So a whole pile of the ground perception was often about obscuring other and to be spectacularly effective, and it was one of those moments, fighting Dagger, it was one of those moments that I thought, oh, okay, I'm actually onto something really worthwhile. It was theory. I was going, okay, what's his grounds? Perception. The next time, Jim, it was literally like, if you were Star Trek geeks, it was literally like a Romulan warbird that just decloaked. I knew where the guy was. So it was just going, you're there. Physically you're there. Bang. I've done enough work on actually recognizing judging my distance previously. Oh, jeez, that was fantastic. Okay. Knowing your opponent's grounds, the ones that they particularly manipulate, is the logical step of formulating a response to what they're doing. Spirit. Now, under this ground, we're looking at a whole pile of the natural intimidation and back and forth that happens. So, certainly, the section talks about the idea of being bold, so you take away their bombs. The whole idea of you're fearful if you don't learn defense. Okay. The idea being that there is an exchange going between people, psychologically, spiritually, however you want to frame it in a fight. And if you win that, you won the fight. And we'll see it then. I was thinking exactly the same. We all know the gym has massive fucking balls, which is fantastic. And that one of the fantastic traits of the fighter is the sort of chutzpah of readiness, which is what with readiness and asking him, which is a fantastic way to control what's about to happen. Example of a fight that Jim did, a long-sword fight that Jim did in 2015 that I had the privilege to watch, where Jim had just taken a deep hit, had a touch on. I can't remember exactly what it was like. Okay, walked back to the edge of the ring, took a breath, peaceably, okay, and then turned around and started to move. Literally, shit you not, shit you not, the other person as they moved, the other person started to move like a puppet on a freaking string. The fight was over. I think Jim got 3 clean touches. Okay, so that is an example of what I'm calling the spirit affecting, in this way, allowing Jim to take control of time. The timing of the fight. Once he's done that, he has this dominance, dominance both psychologically and in terms of controlling the timings. Game's over. And we all have a recognised fights we've been in or fights we've watched where that has occurred. So, the idea here of just socially putting your opponent into submission or dominance or provocation. The way, for example, that Axel Peterson manifests spirit, just walking out into a ring and claiming ownership over it. And check out what Christine talks about. She's watched Axel go do it. She went out and seen a number of her bouts. I was watching one of the tournaments in English when she goes out and does exactly the same thing. She Axel would, so she can put it into practice too.
So what? How? I was looking at the video.
It's how we communicate. Yeah, it could be, yes. But it's about what you communicate. Yeah. Ultimately, the psychological about is more about what you communicate and what people's response to that is.
No, I didn't do it.
Now, there's heaps to discuss. There's heaps to discuss here. But I think I need to start typing something. I thank you guys for just listening as well. One of the big questions that is really useful to ask yourself as answer is this: what do I do? Figure out the grounds that you want to fight on. What are the grounds that you specifically want to fight on? And answer the question: what do I do if they're denying me? What do I do if they're denying me that ground? If I want to fight online, what do I do if they're denying me that fight? Okay, and then we've got different answers because we have different technical vocabulary. And indulge me please. One of my favourite analogies from Maya is that when two people fight, it's like two armies coming together. Okay, and the idea is you send out your scouts and you figure out your opponent's position. This is really useful if we start to use the grounds to go through this. Figure out the position, so figure out what their fight is. Can they control the distance and timing? The distance and timing, can they control the line? Boom, we get that answer, we commit our forces to a precise attack, and we get out safely. Okay, so, and this is going to look very different for different fighters. Say, for example, we've got someone who is really strong at distance, and really strong at distance and time. They don't want to deny people's technique, use line space time. If we consider two different forces, okay, we're going to have red coats and independent specific, okay? Just because they are. Now I want you to think about a technical fighter, and ultimately they're the red coats, because they are actually the best equipped force of their era, with the most firepower, have more cannons, more horses, more discipline. If you meet them on the field that they want to fight on, you die. Like a dinner. It's actually a technical fight. Okay? If we think about, thank you, okay? Ultimately, an irregular force is 40 yards. This is what most people call, or most masters call the Volga fencer. And a lot of Volga fencers are actually very good and very dangerous. And dangerous as fencers. So, they have an entirely different approach to the fight. They're going to make, their entire fight needs to be tactical. Because if it isn't, they're gone. They have no solutions. And one of the things that I think in some ways for technical fighters, bringing it back to more people, and in this case technical fighter, is just someone who wants to actually put the techniques that we're learning into practice and win in that way. Right? So you don't have to be a technical fighter in the broader sense to class of that thing. You just want to, in some ways I'm saying, you just want to do him. Okay? What happens is we have this goal, and so what we want is we want a nice, flat field where we can put our things, and we neglect the tactical aspect of this that undergirds it. So we don't ask the same question, well, where are we fighting and what are we fighting over specifically? We think, I just want to do this technical practice. But if I do that, I'm not actually fighting. I'm not actually responsive at all to the person who is in front of me. If I approach myself, what's the tactical situation, I can then go out and draw out of my vocabulary of technical ability and say, this. I put that into practice and you're going to have a large success. So, it's part of what this hope for people to take on. And I'll be certainly publishing this online script platforms afterwards. Foreground is to be able to ask these questions in a way that is beneficial and useful to you, right? To go into a situation, they're controlling the timing. How do I respond to that? Okay? I want to move the fight to the sword. How do I do that? And when I ask that question, I'm actually responding to something that's really happening in front of me, as opposed to making it as a theoretical idea in my head. Okay? Which is what I do when I'm reading books. And that is going to start this session. Cool. There's so many more questions that we can ask, which are really useful. I love the army analogy because if we might look at each individual fencer and go, the composition, think of the different grounds as the amount of cavalry and infantry or whatever that you have to put on the field, and so to draw your fencing answers out of, and that's going to affect the defense a lot. The defense will affect your answers to the questions that come. We might look at how attributes, being tall or short or fast, shifts around our responses. But the major thing that we want to bring on is that we can use this as a real diagnostic for ourselves when we're fencing and to plan successful tactics. That draw from our technical vocabulary that is difficult to access under stress. So, question. So any aspects of what I've been talking about is like...
Okay.
Yes.
So, we've got this method to analyze what's going on.
Yep.
Is this something you would primarily use in the moment when you're about to fight someone or when you are fighting someone? Or is this something that you would use as like a long-term training goal or long-term training feedback or what?
I guess to speak for myself, I tend to do it in practice. It's like, it's all the above. I found it useful or I go, I found it useful in the moment. I'm fencing going, I'm walking back to do the next pass and go, I stuffed up all this, or I got this and that worked. How can I further bust that open? But I found it really useful in the moment. I found it really useful planning tactics when I know that I'm dealing with a specific opponent or a specific style or type of opponent. Okay, so I know what my answers, so I'm more likely to choose the correct answer when I come into the context of a battle. I would use that, look at it long term to ask the question, which one do I characteristically ignore? If I characteristically ignore the line, I'm going to double a lot. That's a good thing. Now, it can be technically a really good thing to fix. Well, if I'll tend to ignore one or two. So that, in a long-term training, it's just really good to go, that's the whole. So, yeah, I guess that's an exciting thing for me developing this and using it to help my students, which has been very effective so far. It's all of the above. I've used it in a whole lot of different ways. Even understanding where a particular fencing master is coming from. You can pick the thing that they're particularly good at, or that they're particularly want to do. It really helps to understand how they're making decisions like that. Sure.
Framework for you.
Yep.
So you frame this as kind of meta theory,
Yep.
and I get that. But do you find that if you put a different weapon combination in your hand, your balance in your army changes all of a sudden?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. Cool. Yes, all the time. Yes, all the time, because if I'm fighting with a desert, the ground's changed. And if kind of a longsword, just like a spadon, like dagger, a spear. The ground of distance is different. You're literally fighting distances. Timings are similar, but the way in which the timings relate to each other change. If I'm predominantly dealing with cuts, that is a given time or tempo. If I'm predominantly dealing with thrusts, that's a different rhythm of tempo.
I can also, if I jump in there, yes, because one of the things I would tell you about is you will actually focus on different rounds depending on what
And it's useful. It's useful to understand what your doing is. And different weapons are going to emphasize different rounds more. I think. That there is, if we're fighting, I'm not sure if we're fighting the pikes, but if we're fighting the spears, we've got this game here, and then once we pass the point, there's really not much mid-game, is there? Okay? And it's a matter of who can actually get to the grapple or control. Because that is the most valuable, ironically for me, not only for you, but for me, not only for me, but for me, we're going, I'm dealing with all these different systems. So, this helps to make my response Good guys, I'll finish up there. Thank you very much.